This is the 6th chapter of a book that I'm writing. It's about Jay, a kid that had kind of a rough childhood, and the book is called Saved. Whether time drags or flies, it is by life's notable events that we measure it. Jay didn't have any until the day he rummaged through a kitchen drawer looking for a pair of scissors to cut back the long locks of hair that lay over his eyes. He came upon a wad of paper. Grabbing it, he crossed the gritty floor, sank into a chair, and dropped his head on the table, needing a minute or two to orient himself. Dusk leapt into the air and rode the shaft of sunlight from the window. Focusing made his head ache. For several moments he held the wad before placing it flat and pressing out the wrinkles. He slowly began to read, squinting to decipher the contents, the writing so faint, the paper yellow with age. Laundry soap, shampoo, a dust mop, coffee. A shopping list? When? It's been 5 years, he thought. He recalled the day Wilma left in September, the afternoon a sour color of lemon juice. She sat at the kitchen table, boxes and bags at her side, nervously tapping her long fingernails, waiting for Susan to arrive. Periodically, she broke her rhythm to jump up and check the clock. Woo, 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 she laughed, dancing about the room. That gal better show up soon or I'm going to plumb explode from excitement. Then, would you look at that, she said, holding her hands out in front of her. I've got 2 smokes lit at the same time, I'm so nervous. She sat a moment, then again jumped up, turned on the radio, sang and snapped her fingers. Whole lot of shaking going on. I'm tired, thought Jay, sitting at the table. He lay his head on his arms and briefly dozed as Tammy Wynette sang, Stand by Your Man, only awakening when Wilma angrily flipped off the radio. I sure as hell don't need to listen to that shit. I can't believe I stayed with that bastard for 10 years. She noticed she'd awakened Jay. Sorry, kid, she shrugged, but I can't do nothing for you. I've got to save myself. Life's no bed of roses. You sure as hell know that by now, right? Jay nodded. Good. The sooner you realize that, oh, here's Susan. Wilma grabbed her bags and headed for the door, yelling hello to Susan and bye to Jay in the same breath. The screen door slammed shut and Jay headed for bed. When Wilma left, Harold did too for the most part. He'd come home occasionally, red and drunk, his face set in deep, bitter lines. Upon seeing Jay, he'd yell, Stay out of my way, you stupid brat. Jay quit going to school, and no one noticed. He slept incessantly, rising only when hunger overtook him. Then he'd scrounge in the cupboards for crackers or Campbell's soup. Occasionally he'd find peanut butter and canned milk, food bank commodities the landlord brought when collecting the rent. Living alone loosened him from his life. He relied on his solitude and resented any interruption, thinking, I'm glad she left, I don't want nobody. At some point, a letter came from the Duncan School Board, addressed to Harold and Wilma Hartle. Jay hurriedly found a pencil and paper, sat at the kitchen table, and practiced writing cursive. The memory of it came to him slowly, but after an hour or so, he was able to write unknown on the envelope, confidently and without shaking. He returned it to the mailbox, smiling to himself. Unknown, it's almost the truth. He grew taller, no longer fit his clothes. I'll wear his, Jay decided. Taking several briefs and t-shirts from Harold's drawer, he sneered with satisfaction. I'm not asking him for nothing. Jay hated sunlight, or daylight. The brightness burned his eyes, and the sun's heat made him nauseous. Plus there were all the noxious sounds of day, cars, trains, kids chattering. He soon changed his sleep schedule. Instead of night, he'd sleep daytimes, which freed him up for mysteries after dark. Solitude felt validating, remote, and detached. It expected nothing of him. Stars were particularly enticing, and he fluctuated between being drawn in by their coquettish twinkling to imagining them angrily punching the sky, making bullet holes. I wish I was there, not here. At daybreak, he'd shed his clothes and head for bed, reveling in his nakedness, the sheets cool against his skin.
I'm loud, I'm just going in front here. Antiseptic. Hot nurse with such light scrubs, lay your healing hands on me. At 16, I am all goosebumps in my bare feet and gown. Hot nurse leans over, smells of lilac. Not nurse, but doctor. I'm embarrassed. Such a crumb to assume all women nurses. Hot doctor with such light scrubs, lay your healing hands on me. She does her tests with her rubber hammer, then warm hands in mine, testing my strength, my power, how well I can push and pull. Adolescent, Mel, Becker's muscular dystrophy, no noticeable change since last. She smiles with her perfect white teeth, coyly over note page and leaves. I feel warm and flush. I kick up my feet, almost knock over a tray. She comes back in, very grave. She has caught me, now punishment. Looking to her right to see if we are alone, and then comes in unsure. All those teeth again, but no follow through to deep green eyes. Then she blurts, I don't know if this has been addressed to you, but it would be unwise for you to have children. Then pausing, there's no changes to your health that I've found. Here's the attending. From the right comes the boss doctor in his long coat, so crisp and white. He smiles at her, approving of a hard job so well done by a young intern. She doesn't look back, just leaves. In her path, lilac over antiseptic.
This is, it's a rough draft of a braided essay, and I tried to cut out a lot just to keep it short, so I hope it makes sense. I forgot to take Valium before this, or whatever people take before they come up here. It's called Mormon and Jew, A Tale Told in Food. It's a mid-July afternoon. I could be strolling along the river in our northern Utah town, or sitting on the porch reading the Brothers Karamazov. Instead, I'm laboring in the kitchen, freezing and drying 60 pounds of cherries. Why? Because cherry season is on, and according to my wife Monty, who orchestrates such tasks, our food storage has become dangerously low. I know what she means. In our cellar pantry, the size of a New York apartment, an entire shelf lies bare. Should the apocalypse hit between this season and the next, she says, mark my word, we'll appreciate our fare. Ladle in hand, I scoop the cherries and nod. I come by it honestly, she adds. Perhaps dissatisfied, I don't seem convinced. Look at how my parents live. How can I miss it? True to their pioneer heritage, buckets of wheat and beans and corn cover 2 basement walls. Storage freezers packed to the gills line the third. Boxes and cans and jars peek out of cupboards and from beneath tables and beds. Open the coat closet and be greeted by barrels of oats. This is a land where people haul truckloads of potatoes from Idaho and buy cans by the case. So now another voice. Everyone knows Jews are neurotic, with New York Jews the worst. Yes, I understood that before marrying Felicia. But I tell you, she makes Woody Allen, that quintessential New York Jew, seem as uptight as the Big Lebowski on weed. Take, for instance, the way she packs my lunch. Rain or shine, sleet or hail, fever or fight, By 7 a.m., my lunchbox sits on the counter, ready to escort me to work. It eases my mornings, and I appreciate that. But come noon, and the challenge begins. To free the sandwich, I must summon the techniques of Houdini. First, there's the issue of the tin. Why must she screw the lid on so tightly? What's the risk my sandwich will leak? Then there are the rubber bands. On good days, we have 2 on each half sandwich. On bad days, 3 or 4. Why? So that the wax paper, folded in complex origami, does not come undone. Has any victual or libation ever sullied your lunchbox, she asks. She has a point. The innards of my lunchbox remain pure as the driven snow. I suppose there's virtue in that. The 72-hour kit has its advantages. Ample and tidy, it contains much one might need should a band of marauders come along and insist we join them at once. Still, its contents leave much to be desired. Where, for instance, is the brisket, the bialys, the borscht? I see no reason for these crucial omissions. And the batteries, in the same bag as the food? If they leak, we'll die. Better to eat in the dark. Felicia does not understand the value of the 72-hour kit. Yesterday, she approached me in apparent frustration. Have you seen the can opener, she asked. I've looked all over the kitchen. It's in the 72-hour kit, I said. Oh, she replied, can I use it? I'd like to open some tuna. Can't you eat something else? But I'm in the mood for tuna. Well, in the event of a problem with the food supply, you'll have 6 cans of albacore on which to feast. What we now call salad comes from the Latin word sal, meaning salt. And to my mind, that's what a salad contains. So when my in-laws asked us to bring a green salad to lunch, I tossed arugula and cress with olive oils and salt. It's lovely, Monty said, but I doubt anyone will eat it. It was then I learned that a green salad means chunks of canned fruit mixed with Cool Whip and lime-flavored jelly. I started again. For good measure, I tossed in a teaspoon of salt. Okay, I've cut out some parts, but I'll read a little more. Felicia has fine taste in books, and for the most part, even her musical choices pass muster. But to put it mildly, she lacks finesse when it comes to food. Imagine this. Her ideal dessert is a cup of coffee, bitter and black. If your life is sweet, she says, you don't crave it in your food. So, I wonder, is it because she lacks bitterness that she craves coffee in her life? Okay, skipping that part. Some years ago, I came across a recipe for funeral potatoes. Only the chef, a Utah native, had attended cooking school in New York and had gotten ideas. To the 18 or 20 potatoes and cream sauce, he added a minced clove of garlic. Since no one had died, I decided to attempt this unorthodox version of the standard fare. It's very good, Monty says. Actually, it's quite tasty. Her expression suggests alertness, a hint of confusion, though not of distaste. But, I ask, but it's rather spicy. I'm wondering if you added something unusual. Garlic, perhaps. That reminds me, I've been meaning to place a pea under the mattress. I'll do that just now. It was the raccoon's fault, Monty said. It was the raccoon that nearly got me in trouble. The raccoon, I asked? Yeah, remember I told you about our pet raccoon? Someone gave it to us in Wyoming, and we drove it back to Utah on the top of the car. Oh yeah, that raccoon. Well, anyway, every first Saturday, I'd hide sweets in the back of the food storage room in preparation for Fast Sunday. This way, I could sneak food after church. One Sunday, the raccoon escaped from its cage and found a bag of marshmallows I'd hidden, and made a mess of it all over the living room rug. Mom kept saying to Dad, I never keep marshmallows in the food storage area. She seemed at first perplexed and then annoyed, but she never did figure out how it got there. The moral of this particular story? I'm married to someone who considers marshmallows food. Felicia has come not only to understand, but also to respect that scones are fried, not baked, that ranch is the only dressing worthy of its name, that frog's eye salad deserves its place in high cuisine. What's more, a look of love spreads across her face as she watches me eat this cherished fare. Monty has plans to build me a pond and stock it with all sorts of fish. It's to remind you of when your grandmother kept chubs and carp in the bathtub in preparation for making gefilte fish. I'm skipping some just to the end. Oh, that fateful day we met, each filled with cravings, each seeking sustenance for a starving soul. That, of course, was many years ago. Now, amid the canning and the koshering and the kissing, we savor a marriage made in nourishment heaven.
Wow, great night, everybody. Okay, we'll hear from Preston Grover, Dustin, and then Ronald Jensen.
Hey everyone, got a few short poems here. This first one's untitled, because I don't believe in titles apparently. The whir of the needle on the finished record voiced its electric lick over and over and over. In my cloud of euphoria, I didn't think to silence the pin and disc that shook me to my core. This next one also does not have a title, but it's about my brother, and he got married this summer, so kind of an easy topic to write about. You used to beat up on me before I'd tell mom on you, and then after, he was older by the way, and then after, when we were both angry and red and sweaty at each other, our mom would look up at the ceiling and would cry and shake her head. At your wedding, I almost dropped the silver bands through wooden slots, and everyone laughed with relief when I caught them again. I handed them, one to your wife, shaking and laughing and crying, one to you, and I placed in your sweaty palm the band. And we laughed, and we were both shaking and sweaty and red. And again, our mom was there, shaking her head and crying. This last one does have a title, and it's called Obvious Gods. Load, all right. I come from a land where feathered friends have a left and a right, and bicker among themselves and try to have me mediate. Where the carpets are stained with baked ham and Kool-Aid, and my mind is stained with sushi and PBR. Where locks are hateful and accusatory and ineffective. Where happiness is prescribed and dispensed like Pez and forced into mouths. Where sanity comes from death sticks, and brown flakes are burned in secret and rarely in sparse. Where the gods are obvious and the parents are false and the two are interchangeable, and reunions are silent and departures are grateful. Where people call themselves your brother and faggot in the same breath, and your actual brothers are too young or too angry to notice. Where pictures are hidden behind paperweight doctrine and sex is a thing kept caged up in the backyard. Where green and moist triumph over stubborn and red and arid, and I yell, oh God, my God, help me forget the time. Thank you.
All right, so this is a piece I wrote a few months back. It's a braided essay entitled Kami no Ite. I am a god. Before me, an empty space of infinite possibilities. Snap! A black star winks into existence. The first of my creations, my universe. Snap! What's this? A white star disrupting my aesthetic? Unacceptable! I create another black, expanding my cosmos and lean back with a smile. This conflict has raged for over 4,000 years. The game of Go has shaped Asia, eloquent in simplicity, mesmerizing in complexity. It was a lazy Friday, and I sat in the teacher's office with time slowly ticking away. The sky was so clear that I could see Mount Fuji rising in the distance. And the weekend beckoned with its promises of fun and relaxation. But it began with a strange, low groan, like the bowels of a wooden ship on choppy waters. To be of the gentry in China, one had to learn the moves of Go. In Japan, the samurai themselves bowed to a true master of the art. Snap! Now there were 2 white stars in my universe. I place another black and build my network as I ponder the growing resilience of my opponent. We are destined to clash. My black star pulses to life in the field of my opponent's white. And as I fire the opening volley of our conflict, my opponent draws back, raising a hand to his mouth. What now? How will you respond? Snap! A white star flashes near my lonely black. I smile. Well done, white. But you cannot stop me now. My cluster grows, slicing like a knife through the feebly constructed barriers. I knew what earthquakes were like. After almost 3 years in Japan, the 30-second rumbles didn't even faze me anymore. But this was different. In several long minutes, the entire island chain shifted 8 feet, and the Earth's axis tilted 4 inches. In Saitama City, we did not experience the worst of the shock, but knew something terrible had happened. We tuned into NHK's emergency report, 9.0. The epicenter, several hundred miles away off the northern Tohoku coast. Then the newscaster announced the word that all Japan dreaded, tsunami. Our conflict now rages across the grid as white and black stars spin an intricate web. The advantage is clearly mine, however. White shakes his head, and I lean back and wait for the word of defeat. Makemashita. I resign. The tsunami rocketed ashore along the eastern coastline, relentless and uncaring in one massive wave after another. We watched on television as people ran from the deluge only to be inundated and engulfed. Homes cracked from their foundations like sandcastles in the surf, and cars floated like specks in a great river. 15,000 people lost their lives. Could I even comprehend that? Though so close, the distance made it unbelievable. Across from me, my opponent closes his eyes and takes a deep sigh. But it's not a sigh of resignation. My gaze darts across the board. My strategy was perfect. My play, flawless. What did I miss? Months later, I volunteered to assist in the cleanup. I walked through Otsuchi, one of the cities worst affected. Most of the rubble was gone, and the floating cars were now piled atop one another. On the other side of town, a large tourist boat had come to rest on the top of a 2-story building, a reminder of the tsunami's height. Though half inundated, the city hall still stood. The clock over the entryway ticked no more. Frozen forever at 2:55, the time the first wave hit. Snap! I tilt my head, and the white star now glistens in my sea of black. And I lean to examine the move. Inconsequential, no real threat. Yet, my eyes widen as I carefully scan the entire board. No! Sweat beads my forehead as I retaliate. White responds. Our battles continue when my victory, once so secure, fades. Everywhere across the grid, black stars wink from existence. How could anyone have played such a move? White's play, stimulating and beautiful, precise and exacting. nothing short of the kami no ite, a divine move, something to which we lowly mortals aspire, and in deep contemplation only true gods could inspire. I stood amidst the skeletal foundations and still struggled to understand the true magnitude of the disaster. I walked past the ruins near the shore, and there I spotted a tiny stone. Why, in the midst of the chaos, this artifact caught my eye, I will never know. But I picked up the obscure pebble and froze. It was a ghoststone. All of the weight of lives lost and communities destroyed fell on me as I rolled the cold piece through my fingers. Here, in my hand, was a universe. Someone's universe. Around me, each and every concrete skeleton represented the life of someone who'd lost the chance to play. I stare at my opponent, his face showing none of the overconfidence that was my downfall. A 19 by 19 grid holding our stones sits between us. The sweet and subtle cinnamon aroma of the wood fills my nose as I lift another black stone, and I hesitate and slowly place it back in the bowl. I hung my head. Makimashita, I say. My opponent bows as I surrender my universe. Arigatou gozaimashita. Did the owner of this stone play divine move and survive the flood against hopeless odds? Or did he bow his head and in silent resignation give in as the swirling morass overtook him? I kept that stone as a reminder of the lives lost and games never played. Someday, once the damage is repaired and the town rebuilt, I'll travel back to Otsuchi and present the city this small, but for me, significant gift. The discovery in the ruined landscape that painted a human face on a faceless disaster. The last kami no ite of a simple black stone. Thank you.
Hi. Hi, Logan. Phone call. My queen. We were hanging in New Year 2 years ago. That New Year's Eve danced a year and we would go. Last time since then, you became my wife. I'm so glad that you be in my life. You think that I can have you for eternity. Somebody up there must really love me. Like bless me with you, my darling Kayleen. Precious God of God is fit to be a queen. It's called Dewey Decimal System. The zeros are in general works, mysteries and facts. The one has on the big P words is P sound, each word lacks. The two hands on religion and mythology too. The hands on holidays, fairy tales, and manners you can do. The 4 hands on dictionaries and the way that we talk. The 5 hands on sciences, like animals and rocks. The 6 hands on tame animals, machines of all sorts. The 7 hands on the arts, like drawing and sports. The 8 hands on jokes and poems and plays. The 9 hands on geography and history of past days. These are the biographies, the people we adore. Mr. My Dewey poem. I hope it taught you more. Thank you.